Why human history starts with Sumerian civilization. Much of the civilization that we enjoy today began about 6,000 years ago in Sumer, the first civilization of mankind. There were letters and wheels, the first schools, the Congress, the code, the architectural medicine, everything. In addition, in Gilgamesh, the first epic poem written at the time, high-level thoughts such as honor and friendship were left in an exciting narrative. As such a high level of civilization suddenly appears at once, many people argue that Sumerian alien civilization is a theory. What historical process did Dodexi go through that led to the sudden emergence of the first and greatest civilization in Sumer? First, Sumer refers to Lower Mesopotamia. It's now southern Iraq now. Mesopotamia is the land between the Euphrates and the Tigris that belongs to the Fertile Crescent that we've heard of in our school days. The land here was alluvial soil and fertile soil made up of sediment from the upper reaches of the two rivers. And here, in 6000 BCE, people came in and started to grow barley and wheat. The people who settled in the Sumerian region at this time were called Sumerians. But where they came from is still unknown. So, around 5000 BCE, 1,000 years after the first Sumerians settled, they had the first city that was much larger than the village. It's the city of Eridu. In addition to farming and raising livestock in a rich land, the city of Eridu also actively engaged in commerce and trade by making earthenware. And they start to have several city-states around the Sumerian region, starting with Eridu. And so as we go into the millennium after the creation of these cities, and then after the heyday of Eridu, they have two cities, the Kishi and the Urk, fighting for the supremacy of the Sumerian region. And then after the competition, Urk defeats the Kishi and becomes Sumerian ruler. It was Gilgamesh, the fifth king of Urk, who won the decisive victory. Right, Gilgamesh is believed to be not just a mythical figure, but a real figure, and his hero story has long been passed down in the Sumerian region, creating Gilgamesh, 2/3 gods and 1/3 human. And so, after Gilgamesh in the 4th millennium BCE, Urk becomes the central city of Sumerian, and from the 3rd millennium BCE they start to have the full heyday of Sumerian civilization. Ironically, this heyday began not with abundance but with a deadly crisis. In Mesopotamia, temperatures have soared and precipitation has decreased, causing water levels in the two rivers to drop. At the same time, wetlands and streams, which are the lifeline of farming, began to dry up. In short, the Sumerians' biggest reason for settling here has disappeared. However, humans, who have already entered the path of farming and settlement, cannot leave the land that has been going on for thousands of years as easily as when they were hunting. They had to do everything they could on the spot. So the solution they found was to build related facilities. The Sumerians each created reservoirs in their villages, stored water, and created waterways to provide water to agricultural land. However, these small-scale related facilities were limited, and villages joined together to create large-scale canals and artificial agriculture, which was not dependent on rain. So Sumer becomes the first civilization to overcome natural disasters through cooperation. But it wouldn't have been as easy as it sounds for them to build large-scale relational facilities. It would never have been easy for them to move large numbers of workers toward a single purpose and divide the water that drew the canal evenly without any noise. So not just kings and ambassadors, but also administrative personnel centered on them began to emerge. They had a managed elite who didn't have to participate in the production directly. Sumerian cities that have entered into this systematization begin to see rapid technological development based on population concentration and city-specific networks. They were able to dig with pickaxes and plows with cattle, and as artificial arable land expanded and agricultural instruments developed, crops increased, wheels were mobilized to move them easily, and cattle cart was made. And there was a surplus product that was left to eat, so they started bartering with other cities without rotting it. Also, they invented sails to carry many things to faraway places and made sailboats to open the sea route. Now that the sea route was open, they used a spinning wheel to make and sell large quantities of pottery, and they started importing insufficient wood and ore into the Sumerian region. In particular, they brought in copper and tin and they made bronze, so this is where the Bronze Age begins. More than 80% of Sumer's territory has become a city between 3000 and 2500 BCE since the opening of the waterways with other cities in Urk. Here, a city means that the types of jobs are not limited to farmers, but have diversified to hundreds and become a community that entrusts my survival to strangers beyond simple kinship groups. At that time, the largest city of URK had a population of 50,000. On the other hand, if the network has been stabilized inside the city, on the contrary, there is a strange tension outside the city. For example, a bronze material creates an invention called a sword. What does this mean? In short, high-end murder tools have been created solely for fighting. But the invention of the sword was only the beginning. Later, the wheels used for spinning wheels and cartwheels were used for military tanks. In short, a fierce arms race between cities has begun. So the preparation for war further accelerated the machine civilization. Cities began to build walls, and people found that breaking into other areas and taking supplies was the way ahead of other communities, rather than working hard. The war was an opportunity to test one's courage and leadership, and the person who stood out was able to gain an upper hand in power over others and eventually become king of the hereditary dynasty. In this process, smaller cities were merged into larger cities, leading to prisoners of war and a slave economy using slaves as a labor force. In summary, cities have developed jointly to prepare for natural disasters and to develop systems and technologies while fighting wars. However, while these systems and technologies helped the minority ruling class effectively, they did not solve the forced labor, war mobilization, and economic poverty of the ruling class. I mean, city life wasn't good for everyone. Nevertheless, they were able to live contentedly in real life, and a small number of elites were able to dominate the majority because of the support of various ideologies. Most representatively, it is impossible for a few people to mobilize large numbers of people who don't know each other to build relationships every day, go to war with their lives as collateral, and voluntarily pay taxes. They needed a sophisticated ideology that allowed community members to submit themselves to the system. Religion played a role in the Sumerian civilization. On the other hand, religion was also necessary for the ruling forces, but it also played an important role in making community members believe in the system. Because they needed a minimal connection to leave their survival to a complete stranger, not a relative. And the link was that they believed in the same God. They believed in the power of morality to be punished by God when they betrayed each other's faith. So, a broad network of cooperation that has never been realized is built on religion. It's a virtual belief that made it real. Of course, this is described from a historical and social point of view, and from a philosophical and religious point of view. It can be said that humans are metaphysical animals that care about transcendental things before the secular ones in the first place. Anyway, the Sumerians believed from an early age that nature contained great forces beyond humans. And they saw that they had to have the right relationship with that power. This is because they thought that otherwise humans would not be able to survive. Because in Mesopotamia, floods and droughts absolutely dictate human survival, and people have always had to live with fear of nature. This fear led to the idea of worship of nature, and in particular, the various gods associated with farming began to emerge one by one. As the gods increased one by one, there were about 3,000 gods, and the polytheistic system was established. Did you enjoy watching it so far? We'll end the first part of the video here and meet you in the second part. We're short stories.